Now, what I'm going to show you here is the approximate position of the Nibiru and its 7 planets coming in. Because this is apparently a genuine photograph, in the center there with this red with the black dot and the what appears to be a planet up to the left. It's coming in, this photograph, what I'm going to show you on Stellarium, is set up for Hobart, Tasmania, south of Australia, and you'll see Jupiter. Now if you just notice around here, the stars aren't that numerous, and I think what's happening is that the light coming from the distant stars are being absorbed into the rear of the magnetic field because the light is being bent. I mean, light is bending in space all the time. In the old Cathay ray tubes, which is the old television sets, that's how a television set works. You bend the light electrons coming at the screen. So I'll now go over to Stellarium and show you the same scene basically. So there's Jupiter there, we'll pull that over. So in this area here is where I was showing you. Now I'm going to show you what happens when we get out and away from that spot that I've determined where this is going to be, and you'll see how the light comes on. And then as we go back towards where I think that the Nibiru object is the lights go out, so I go back again, the lights go on, so the light is being bent and absorbed by the Nibiru object. So we'll go up now towards Taurus, which is up here, and you'll see the light comes on again. There's Taurus there. The light's going off now. So possibly this hasn't been noticed by the authorities. I'll just go up again. Now she comes on again. Come back down. Jupiter just goes off screen. Now we'll go left and right. Give it some perspective. The light comes on, off. The light comes on again. So it would appear to be around this area here. Not to say that it is, but it appears to be that's where the effect is occurring. Now, it could be behind Jupiter itself. It could be over this area here, but somewhere in this general vicinity. So that's just a little update on what I've been able to determine could be a possible indication where it is coming in from. And of course Castor and Pollux down here is the twins, first and second coming. So I'll talk to you later.
Planet X special bulletin: a dwarf star and 7 planets are coming in. For the past few hours I've been listening to Patty Brassard, spelled Brass, B-R-A-S-S-A-R-D, a former NASA employee who built the robots which are being used on Fukushima at this moment. She tells of an incoming solar system with 7 planets and says that by August 11th, 2013, the existence of Planet X will be undeniable. She says when this object lines up with our Sun on August 17th, 2013, another major earthquake will occur. This time, though, the object will be only 0.32 AU away from the Earth. The unit AU stands for astronomical unit. That's the distance from the Earth to the Sun, previously measured at 93 million miles. But Patty says that the Earth is being pulled in toward the Sun, and this elongates the orbit and will make summers very, very hot and winters the coldest you've ever experienced. More frighteningly, she said that our electric grid will go down, and when it does, all nuclear power plants will go down too. It is electricity which keeps the reactors cool, and when the electric grid goes, the power plant has only hours on auxiliary power before that too fails, and from what I understand, that means total meltdown. And she says you should locate these nuclear power plants. She said there are over 100 in the United States alone, and make sure that you're not near one. I saw a map. They're all over the East Coast. In fact, I look out the window and I can see one. She said the kill zone in Fukushima was 150 miles. Everybody within 150 miles dies when the nuclear power plants melt down. When I looked out the window and saw one at Palo Verde, I put my head between my legs and kissed my ass goodbye. Patty's in Massachusetts, and her basement is at sea level, so she does not intend to survive the passing of Planet X. She said Russian and Israeli troops are here to round up the people who protest and put them into the FEMA camps, that's what they were built for. She also said that those buildings have gas pipes 2 feet thick in diameter and that they don't want the people on the surface to survive. She talks about Auschwitz, and I gather that they're going to gas the people in there. Don't go to a FEMA camp under any circumstances. You will never come out alive, according to Patty. She said that the coffins can accommodate 3 bodies, and if you wind up in a FEMA camp, you might as well be in Auschwitz under Hitler, because they didn't rig gas to these quarters to make sure that you're nice and comfortable. The government never gave a rat's ass about you or your comfort. It's always been about them. They want you dead, and now the truth is coming out from yet another whistleblower. She said all those near the coast are finished. She said we will see the seas rise 200 feet just from the melting of the South Pole, and that the melting is occurring not from the top down, as you might expect from global warming, but from the bottom up. In addition to 200 feet rise in sea levels from the melting of the South Pole, she said that as this object gets closer, it will stop the rotation of the Earth. And as it slows down and the seas keep moving, she says because of the moon, that the moon controls the waters, and that water will continue to move at 1,000 miles per hour, and that anyone living near the coast is finished. Now this follows 3 days of darkness, which she says is caused by an eclipse. This object is between the sun and us. She says that Mars is getting hammered right now with all the debris from the tail, and she recommends that if you want to survive, that you find the highest place on Earth and get underground. Dig a hole. She says bring a camper and bury it under 3 feet of earth. She says rent a backhoe or something to cover it up. I think this is all insanity. What are you going to do? Breathe radioactive air and survive? You're going to go fishing, catch fish in order to eat? She says the worst of this will be from the end of August until November. That's 4 months. How are you going to survive? September, October, November, 3 months. Each person needs half a gallon of water every day. Fresh water, not radioactive water. I think most of us had better put our heads between our legs and kiss our ass goodbye. All those things I spoke about in my Planet X videos, I have about 40 of them. One of them has over 1 million views. And all those things I talked about turn out to be true. And nobody is sadder than me about that. I wanted it to be wrong. I wanted the earthquakes and volcanoes and sinkholes to be some kind of hoax. But who has the ability to cause earthquakes and volcanoes and sinkholes just to have fun? It's not easy to fake a quake, Jake. This is not a mistake. California, Patty says, will drop into the ocean. It's somewhere between the 17th of August, 2013, and the 26th of August. She says there will be a magnitude 15 quake, centered in Seattle, Washington. So I picked up the phone and called all my friends and told them, and they laughed at me. Oh, that's crazy. Go back to sleep. Patty says her own family has scheduled a family reunion from the 10th of August to the 17th. So that tells you how serious her own family is about her words. I think it's very serious. You don't call in all the ambassadors from all the embassies and close the embassies on a whim. These people have tickets to the underground facilities, and you don't, because you are a dirtbag. That's what I've been saying all along. They treat you, the host of the parasites, like a dirtbag. You paid for all of those underground facilities over the past 50 years, and now you're not invited. And so they expect when the people learn the truth, they're going to be angry. They're going to get their guns, and they're going to try to kill somebody. And you're going to end up killing one of our own who's just uninformed. He thinks he's serving his country. He thinks he's a hero, and you're going to kill him? It'd be better if you talk to him. Talk to all military, talk to all cops, and tell them what's going on, because in the next 10 to 20 days, there's going to be a great awakening by everyone who realizes we are finished. You can't jump in your car and run to get something at the grocery store if the UV A, B, and C are coming down on you. It's deadly. Microwaves will cook your car. She says that microwaves will heat up anything that's metal. It will be red hot from the sun. If California has a 15 magnitude earthquake, do you realize what that will do? And there is nobody to come in and rescue anybody. Remember when all those buildings and freeways fell on people in past earthquakes? Those were 6s and 7s. This is a 15. And every number you go up, it's 10 times more powerful. That means that a 15 is a billion times more powerful than a 6. A 6.0 compared to a 15 is 9 numbers up. That's 10 to the 9th power. That's a billion times more powerful. Nobody can survive a 15. Nobody. Not a billion times more powerful than the ones that brought down the Nimitz freeway and crushed cars as flat as a pancake. All that metal and steel crushed to a pancake with people inside them. I lived in California for about 30 years. I know the San Andreas Fault. I know where it goes in Los Angeles. I know where it goes in San Francisco. But once you get into Oregon and Washington, I don't know much about the San Andreas Fault. I understand that it goes all the way to Alaska. Now, if these plates fracture and California sinks because of lack of support, the pulling away from that plate, the Pacific plate, the tsunami that will come into Los Angeles could be very high. But Patty says we're going to lose much of California. And she says that Tagish Lake, Alaska, will be the new South Pole, that the pole shift has already begun. Tagish Lake, Alaska, I looked it up. There's a Canadian province. Most of Tagish Lake is in that province. BC, might be British Columbia. But as soon as you go over into the U.S. side, Alaska, there's still part of the lake there, a very small part. But she says just north of there will be the new South Pole. Now, that's not what Nancy Lieder said. Nancy Lieder had the North Pole off the coast of Brazil and the South Pole dead center in Saudi Arabia, I believe. Maybe it was reversed. Maybe the North Pole was Saudi Arabia and the South Pole was off the coast of Brazil. That's east of Brazil. Now Patty's telling us, with inside information, that Tagish Lake, Alaska will be the new South Pole. I believe that the pole shift is already underway because I've seen the map where the North Pole is moving. It's moving very quickly and it's accelerating. As I recall, the North Pole was headed toward Siberia, and that it would arrive in Siberia in January of 2014. But I'm recalling this from memory. I can't be sure. I didn't look it up. But I looked up Tagish Lake, Alaska. I spun the globe. I turned it upside down so that was the South Pole, and I spun the globe. And I found that Arizona will be in the southern hemisphere, and Australia will be in the northern hemisphere. Imagine that. Arizona will be the land down under. And it's too bad that I'll be dead in just 10 days or so, because I was looking forward to looking up into those southern skies at night and having the experience of seeing things completely different. Now, you may recall on my previous Planet X videos I spoke about microwaves cooking everything when the Van Allen belt collapses, and very, very few people understood that. They tell me they've got a garden, they're going to go camping, they'll be all right. And I knew that they had no idea what a microwave was, or how it cooks you, or how the Van Allen belt protects us, and that's going to collapse because this star is enormous. I always ridiculed those who said that this star was 4 times the size of Jupiter. Patty says that just one of the 7 planets is 4 times the size of Jupiter. She said that the asteroid belt was a planet, and it got hit head-on by one of these things in the tail of Planet X, and it got smashed to pieces, and that Jupiter absorbed most of it, and the asteroid belt is just what's left over. Now imagine that you cannot go outside even to pee for 6 weeks because there will be deadly, she calls them UVA, UVB, and UVC, ultraviolet A, B, and C rays, which kill everything. I never heard of ultraviolet A, B, and C. I knew that ultraviolet rays kill everything, especially the things we depend on. That's why I say, if it kills the things we depend on for survival, how are you going to survive? She says that some people will survive. Maybe those microorganisms will be inside the caves. I don't know. I think life is going to be extremely difficult. I hope that the first to die are those in the underground facilities, the so-called elite and government, because they are the most evil. And all you religious people who think that Jesus is going to save you, well, you're going to find out. Now, this announcement that I'm making to you is the most grave announcement I have ever made about anything. And while Patty gives advice about how to survive, she says, dig a hole, cover it with at least 3 feet of dirt, put some sort of camper or something in there, rent a Caterpillar or something, it costs $200 a day, and dig a big hole in your backyard, put your camper in there, and then cover it up with 3 feet of dirt. That's crazy. You won't have food. You won't have water. You won't be able to go outside. How are you going to flush the toilet? If you do survive, you're going to be a totally mind-controlled, chipped slave for the elite if they survive. But she says that these underground facilities, which are now stocked with food that is uncontaminated by Fukushima radiation, because they've been stocking those underground facilities for decades. A truck driver called in, a woman, and said she delivered things to Denver Airport, the underground facility there, and they were labeled just general merchandise. So there's first-hand testimony that these underground facilities were stocked. But Patty says that these underground facilities are going to rupture and water is going to flood in and drown most of the people that are the so-called elite. Now, they left us up here to die like a bunch of dirt bags. I imagine that they have cameras everywhere to watch what's going on, and they're going to be down there in their cushy bunkers watching us die and suffer and squirm. And if a fracture occurs and water floods in, I would like to have a camera to watch them drown like rats. If that water is from the Pacific Ocean, maybe it will be full of radiation, and maybe it will contaminate all of their fresh food down there. Maybe the air that comes in will be full of radiation, because all over America, tests are showing that our air is just full of radiation. And maybe this is why the psychic, the French psychic, could not see past 2012. Maybe that's why all those who did time travel said that there was a barrier after 2012. When pressed, the French psychic said, 2 possible reasons: we have a war with aliens, or I'm dead, and that's why I can't see beyond 2012. Well, you've got strontium in the air, which causes bone cancer, and plutonium, which affects all the organs and tissues. And thousands are already dying from the radiation from Fukushima. Remember that Fukushima is about 10 times worse than Chernobyl. Chernobyl was 180 tons of radioactive material, and Fukushima was 1,760 tons. So that's almost 10 times as much. Fukushima is 9 or 10 times as bad as Chernobyl. I've got some shrimp and salmon in the freezer, and I think I'm going to go cook it while the electricity is still on. I already ate all the butter pecan ice cream, and if you have any ice cream that you can't eat, call me. I'll be over there faster than you can say, those dirty bastards in government saved themselves and left us out here to die. How long does it take to say that? How do you like this? The U.S. military is guarding the DUMBs so that you can't get in. They will shoot to kill. They will kill Americans to prevent them from getting into the underground facilities. Well, I don't want to breathe the same air those people breathe. I might wind up like them. So no thanks. I'm not interested in going into a DUMB. These military have already been tested to see if they are loyal to the head Nazi, and they proved that they will follow orders. They will kill anyone they are told to kill. And they think they're heroes. Their reality is not the same as your reality. They live in an illusionary world. I would consider it mental illness, because they don't know reality. Soon all the banks will be closed, and you won't be able to get any money out. And I have been advocating that you get your money out of the bank anyway, and what I have seen on this video with Patty is that the money you hold will only be worth something for a little while longer. And soon nobody will be interested in your money. They're not going to trade real food for fake money. We have been expecting a currency collapse anyway. I just had no idea that it would turn out like this. If you have a house that's made of cement block and a roof that's not made of wood, that's valuable. And there isn't any amount of money that I would trade for such a house. Now the value system changes. If you've got a Caterpillar, a bulldozer, a backhoe, this is extremely valuable. This is worth millions of dollars, even if you paid $6,000 for it, because this is the difference between life and death. Perhaps. I don't know what you call life after something like this. You come out of your nest and breathe radioactive material that will be in the air for thousands of years. You call that life? Look up Patty Brassard, B-R-A-S-S-A-R-D, on YouTube. Watch the videos, the interviews. There's one with Veritas Radio out of Tucson, and that interviewer is very smart. The sound quality is pretty good. There's another one where they talk about the kill shot, and they put the date August 5th, 2013. The sound quality is very poor. Very, very poor. It's difficult to hear the announcer. It's difficult to hear his guest. There was no attention whatsoever given to this video on quality, and if you're able to get anything out of it, that's great. There's a lot of blank space, so it means the audio was not edited, and because of these reasons, it's not a very good quality video. But it's the best you have at this time. You might wonder what is going to happen to Patty. Well, she said she's old, and she's already lived far longer than she expected to. She's falling apart because she carried an M16 across her chest, and the bullets were either depleted uranium or enriched uranium. Can you imagine the U.S. government having soldiers carry radioactive material so close to the chest? This is disgusting, disgusting. And this story should spread to all military so they know how the government really thinks of them. Listen to Patty's testimony. She was in Iraq. She was in communications. These lives meant nothing to the Nazis. Nothing. They were pawns, and the military should understand that. I didn't know that they were using enriched uranium. I knew they were using depleted uranium, but I thought it was only for shells. She said when they are trying to penetrate the ground, they use enriched uranium. These are war crimes. That's who your government is. They're war criminals. They're false flag inside job terrorists. And Patty says the last 4 major terrorist attacks were all inside jobs. And it was done in order to take the guns because they can't pay the Chinese in gold, and so they offered them coastal properties. The Chinese wanted coastal properties, but they said, you disarm the people first. That's what Patty said. That shows you she has a lot of inside information. Now remember, August to November, about 4 months, will be the roughest part of the passing of Planet X. She said if you want to save yourself, it's already too late. She produced some very believable images to support her claims, and she claims to be able to access computers at NASA and EPA and other government agencies, and she revealed that NASA is not a government agency, it's a private corporation. She said it's no more government than the Federal Reserve is. There's one more thing I would like to tell you. She said that 6 astronomers or scientists, these are top astronomers and scientists, had decided that they were going to talk and tell the people, and all 6 of them were killed recently. I haven't heard of it. I don't know who the scientists are, but I think that Patty might be murdered soon also. I would not be surprised. In fact, I am also looking for a bullet, but I'm old and it doesn't matter if they kill me. I don't want to die of thirst. I don't want to die frying under a microwave sky or dying under UV light, ultraviolet light. This is not for me. I'm going to continue my effort to inform and let the chips fall where they may. You all have a right to know what's coming, and your Nazi government will not tell you anything because they want you dead. That's the way it's been for a long time now, and I've been saying it from my first video because I've been reading and putting the pieces of the gigantic puzzle together, and I know what evil looks like. Government is pure evil. And if you didn't know that before today, the next 10 days are going to be enlightening. Trust me. And all that propaganda you've been sucking up on the TV will now be blown away when the electric grid goes off and you have no TV and no drinking water. You'll be defecating outside because the house stinks from a toilet that can't be flushed. There's no water. The government wants you dead, and you're better off dead. And all you religious people out there who hounded me relentlessly and dumped your scriptures on my channel, I hope Jesus saves you from the frying sun's rays.
In fact, if you've been observant, you will have noticed that our neighbor planets of Venus, Jupiter, and Mars have been increasingly luminant. In other words, they've been much brighter in the night sky. Certainly much brighter than what I can recall as a young boy who was so fascinated in the stars and the planets. What other than another presence in our solar system, whether it be some sort of dwarf planet, a failed star, or a binary companion to our sun, that could cause these changes that are occurring not only in our solar system, but here on planet Earth. So, are governments across the world aware of its presence? Do they know exactly what is happening to our planet? And are they making preparations for what they expect or anticipate will take place? Have you heard about the program called Cascadia Rising? You probably haven't heard of this if you're one of those individuals who just relies on mainstream media for your news. But then again, you're probably not going to hear much about this from the cable news networks because it isn't in their best interest to let you know. Cascadia Rising is a large-scale disaster preparedness exercise that will be conducted by the government agency FEMA starting next week, between June 7th and the 10th in the Pacific Northwest. So, of course, the question arises as to why an exercise of such significance is about to take place by a federal agency. Certainly an exercise that's going to be very expensive and time-consuming. Why conduct this if that particular agency wasn't concerned or even knew that something catastrophic or life-threatening was about to happen? Now, we are being told, according to the report, that this preparedness exercise will be conducted in such a way as to simulate a 9.0 magnitude quake along the Cascadia subduction zone, which quake would be followed by a tsunami that would create waves more than 50 feet in height. Okay, so think about that. 50 feet, that's approximately the height of a 5-story building, which by any means would be absolutely devastating to any type of structure or edifice which stands in its way. The drill will bring together local and state emergency responders, FEMA, and a number of military organizations and government first responders. The drill comes as a number of top scientists are warning the Cascadia subduction zone is a disaster waiting to happen. While most people have heard of the San Andreas fault line in California, very little attention has been given to the Cascadia subduction zone. But when compared to the San Andreas, the Cascadia subduction zone is a much larger threat and a more scarier threat than is the San Andreas fault. The Cascadia Rising Preparedness Drill will test plans that have been put together over the last couple of years. Plans that expects in the neighborhood, if not more than, 14,000 deaths, 30,000 injuries, and the complete devastation of the Pacific Northwest coast. According to planners, the quake could devastate the region for decades and could displace 1 million people from northern California to southern Canada. So, how bad could it get? Well, over 7 million people throughout the region could be affected by the Cascadia subduction zone. When the quake hits, the force is expected to cause liquefaction across large areas of the porous region. And in areas that aren't liquefied, the force of the quake could cause huge landslides, devastating destruction to thousands of bridges and buildings, and could cause as many as 30,000 avalanches in Seattle alone. Now, the following model, which we're going to show to you here in just a second, was created by the NWS Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, also referred to as PTWC. It's based off of modeling from an earthquake that hit the area on January the 27th of the year 1700, approximately 315 years ago, which caused a massive tsunami that actually struck the coast of Japan. So traveled for thousands of miles across the Pacific Ocean. Now, officials are planning for a disaster unlike anything we've ever seen. The response will include the deployment of civilian and military personnel and will exceed anything we've ever had to respond to as a country. So think about that for a minute. Anything we've ever had to respond to as a country. What in the world could cause such a response by our government? So the response will be orders of magnitude larger than Hurricane Katrina or Superstorm Sandy. Now, this is according to Lieutenant Colonel Clayton Braun, who's with the Washington State Army National Guard. So here we have an immediate call to action from state and federal agencies that indicates there is an imminent threat to both life and infrastructure as a result of the instability of the region. But one thing's missing here. They fail to indicate in the report as to the rush to action here. Why is it so important that this be conducted at this time? What is the significance of conducting the exercise now, as opposed to, let's say, last year or the year before, or 5 years ago, or for that matter, 2 years from now? What is so important about this date? What is it that they seem to know that the rest of us aren't aware of or aren't being told about? Is it possible that they are preparing for what is coming our way from the dark regions of space? I first heard of Planet X in 2001, shortly after the 9/11 incident, when a lot of people were searching the internet to see if there was some sort of correlation between the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center and the prophecies of Nostradamus. It was during this time frame that millions of people were also searching Google to learn what they could about these mysterious rogue planets that could wreak havoc on the other planets in our solar system. Now, the likelihood of such an event occurring in our lifetime had for a long time been considered nothing more than a wild conspiracy theory. But now people were actually becoming genuinely concerned about its existence and about what effect it would have on our planet. In 2009, I interviewed a gentleman, J.R. Moore, who has a national radio show. In the interview, he indicated that he had spoken with some retired naval brass who were moving to the Ozarks for safety. So you say, why the Ozarks? Well, for one thing, the region is more than 1,000 feet above sea level, and thus it would be a safe location from rising waters, which is something that is expected to occur if we have a flyby of the Planet X system. Now, that interview was published on our YouTube playlist, and it's published under the title Nibiru Truth and the Global Warming Cover-Up. And I would encourage you to listen to it in its entirety, as it does tell us a very interesting story of what preparations the government is making or has made to get ready for the passage of the Planet X system. Now, Russia believes that this system exists, and they are presently building shelters in Moscow and throughout the country in preparation for its flyby. In the United States, preparations have been underway for many years in anticipation of the passage of the Planet X system. One of these massive underground facilities is believed to be located beneath the Denver International Airport, but it is off limits to both the public and the media as a top secret facility. There has also been considerable controversy revolving around the deaths or the mysterious disappearances of individuals in the scientific community who have become whistleblowers with regard to Planet X or a dwarf star in our solar system. Some of you may already know the story behind Dr. Robert Harrington, the chief astronomer of the U.S. Naval Observatory, who died before he could publicize the fact that Planet X is approaching our solar system. Many feel his death is part of a cover-up, one in which government agencies quickly moved to conceal the most earth-shaking discovery in history. So we are certain that the studies that Harrington was conducting in his quest to locate Planet X are very real. But whether he actually died from cancer or was silenced by the elite is still a question worth investigating today. Now, on the flip side of the coin, two reports were recently published by a news site called someonesbones.com. One of those reports states that in 2010, an ominous YouTube video posted by a user calling himself Nibiru-Shock provided the world with the first substantiated images of the Nibiru system. These images, which are being shown here now, were reportedly substantiated by Marshall Masters, who is a former science features editor for CNN News and who is now a Planet X researcher who has a website which is yowusa.com. That's YOWUSA.com. The persona known as Nibiru-Shock was reportedly proven to be Professor Ronald Jason Patrick, a scientist who worked at the Australian Astronomical Observatory, who apparently died in an airplane crash earlier this year. Now the other report, and the one which has sparked a firestorm across astronomical and conspiracy theory internet communities, is the one that involves an individual named Dr. Ronald Shimshuk. Now, I have to admit that I have never heard of this individual, and very little is actually known about him, other than what is being reported on various alternative news sites. Now, he reportedly is an MIT graduate. His credentials include 7 years at McDonnell Douglas, 4 years employment at Boeing, and 3 at NASA. He also was employed as an astronomical consultant at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. Now, according to the alleged interview that was conducted with Dr. Shimshuk, he stated that the Nibiru system is very real, that it is essentially a solar system of its own which will intersect with our solar system. Now, at its heart is a brown dwarf star approximately 1/8 the size of our Sun. The brown dwarf is orbited by 7 planets or moons, some smaller than our moon and some larger than Earth. Of greatest concern is the 3rd planet of this system, which is several times Earth's mass with a nickel-iron core. It is predicted that this planet will pass within 0.3 AU of Earth, or roughly within 27 million miles of our planet. Now, a follow-up interview with this astrophysicist was supposed to take place with YouTube personality Steve Olson, but Dr. Shimshuk somehow mysteriously disappeared shortly into that interview. Now, we have been able to locate a website that has recently appeared on the internet that details who this individual is and contains a validated photograph of Nibiru, which is said to be the first substantiated image taken in the northern hemisphere, which we are showing to you here now. It is important to note that I'm using the term reportedly in referring to these articles because they can't be substantiated. We're uncertain of their authenticity or the accuracy of the report, and furthermore, I have been unable to find any credible information as it relates to either of these individuals that can corroborate their existence in any way or the information they are attempting to provide to the public. Another story that is sweeping the social media circuit, and one which, if true, could have been a deliberate attempt to inform the public, is one that involves Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. The report says the following: Queen Elizabeth stunned BBC production staff yesterday while preparing to deliver the Queen's speech at the state opening of Parliament, hinting that she is planning to abdicate the throne and flee the United Kingdom, a BBC insider claims. Quote, "One is making the necessary preparations to abandon ship," Her Majesty said. "A violent storm is coming, the likes of which Britain has never seen." Her Majesty was speaking to her advisors while taking on the Parliament robe of state and the imperial state crown in the robing chamber. However, she was already wearing a microphone, and her comments were heard by the whole gallery. She seemed angry that she had to remain neutral in her speech. She said there is solid intelligence from military top brass that if we don't Brexit, there is an inevitable World War III scenario that will play out, the insider said. World War II will seem like a bump in the road compared to this. I must warn my subjects, the Queen said. The line was cut off at this point, and BBC production staff were urgently addressed by the director, John Kirby. he said he had been warned by BBC executives that the head of state had been shooting her mouth off a lot lately, and that we must all ignore, forget, delete from our memories everything that we have heard from her. By warning advisers that she has made the necessary preparations to flee the country, is she hinting that she has inside information of the darkest kind? Of course, it is all speculation, more than likely coming from the British tabloids. But then we can't be too certain of that either, as the heads of state have been acting quite peculiar these days, sort of on edge and a bit uneasy, and yet we're not really sure of the reasons for their odd behavior. But until it becomes known to all, we can only wait it out. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of this presentation. There is good reason to believe that the Nibiru Planet X system is entering into or nearing the inner solar system, which would place it somewhere between Jupiter and Mars, which is the outermost of the 4 planets which comprise the inner solar system. In addition to the tremendous numbers of volcanoes erupting in recent weeks, and the increased numbers of earthquakes greater than 6.0, which we already talked about in this video, there are a number of other reasons to consider in making this analysis. One being the tremendous increase in asteroid and fireball activity since the beginning of 2016, as this chart is showing you. If the Planet X system is approaching the asteroid belt, which is situated between Jupiter and Mars, then this could explain the influx in cosmic activity as of late, since the tail of this system would be thrusting these objects out of their normal orbit within the belt and outwards towards the Earth. The fact that the Earth's magnetic field is collapsing should be of great concern to us all, because it foretells of a pole shift that will punch holes in the ozone layer, destroy power grids, cause extreme weather events across the globe, and weaken our ability to fight the effects of damaging rays. The closer that the Planet X system gets, it less likely that our magnetic field will be able to withstand its powerful influence on the Earth's core, resulting in a catastrophic flip of the poles. The most compelling reasons can most likely be seen in the following videos, which I'm going to present to you, which I believe are very convincing captures of the Nibiru complex within our solar system. Now, I would like to thank those individuals who were diligent in capturing these remarkable images and sharing them with us here on the social media sites. Now, this first video, which was posted in our video comment section, was captured in the Pacific Northwest and depicts what has been commonly referred to as 2 suns. Now, it's a very bright planet. We believe it is the innermost planet in the Planet X system, which revolves around Nemesis, the companion star to our sun. So take a look at this video.